Anyone? Bueller?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Kelsey.
I don't know who did it. Did she do it?
Yeah, we got a motion from Kelsey, so we'll take a second from you, Shan. Awesome. All right, any discussion about the minutes? All right, so all in favor of approving the April minutes? Hands? All right, passes unanimously. I'll pass it over to Tanisha for the liaison report.
All right, liaison report. First up is Metaphysica. We have a new install date of May 29th. Please feel free to come out and meet the artist and see the install. He's going to start at 10 a.m. and he expects it to take about 6 hours. And that's in front of MARTA on the Peachtree Road side at the green space. And we will do a ribbon cutting for that with MARTA at a later date. Next up is Babe Walls Festival. I have a bit to talk about on this one. So as you guys know, I did a walkthrough with them a while back, and we talked about that at the last meeting. They were excited, we were moving forward, and I thought that we would be able to get that long building across from, or sort of next to, Davin's, which is, if you look in this, the last picture here, the building that's on the left, I thought we were going to be able to get that because they are the same owners as the Block and Drum building, and they allowed a mural on that building. They are not interested in doing the Babe Walls Festival for various reasons. And so I went back to the drawing board with Babe Walls, and we talked about kind of expanding, taking away the building that is no longer in play, and B, giving them the columns idea, so merging those two festivals. So giving them the columns and then giving them the tunnel on the rail trail just a little further up, and those two walls that are on one side of the entrance. So I went and took all those measurements, gave that back to them, and we're just waiting on a updated quote or proposal from them to see kind of what that looks like, if it's still within our reach with the added footage. And I say that because the tunnel is much bigger than it looks. When you actually go out there and measure it, it's a lot of wall. So we'll see. Again, they're very excited about this. In no way are we going to like drop this. You know, I think we just, if it's a little too much, maybe we just take away some of the walls. So both sides in. So the way they do it is they kind of delineate walls, which are usually, let's say, 10 feet high, 20 feet wide. So they would take some, that measurement, maybe not exactly, and kind of see how many walls would come out of that tunnel. And then they put 2 artists per wall, one from their group and one who's local to Atlanta. Not necessarily a demarcation. I mean, you may see artists who kind of combine, so that it sort of flows into one or the other. Yeah, well, I mean, we would all be very involved in this process. No, Davin's wall is very much still in play. I've spoken to Davin's. She's excited about it. It's the building that you can see in the picture with the Davin's building on your screen. There's a building kind of behind that to the left. That's a different owner, and they have indicated that they're not interested in using their wall.
Do you have a ETA on the new quote from them or the new proposal?
I don't, but they are aware of our city council meetings and our PAC meetings. So they're trying to work around that so that we can kind of keep the process moving without losing a month.
And I don't know if we saw the previous proposal in full, so when the new one comes in, can you drop that in the
Yeah, I'll
Teams
share that.
so that we can all review that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, I just said on this slide, new proposal pricing with new measurements. I'm not expecting the timeline to change. William Massey update. So I did a site walkthrough with him at our original proposal, which was Arrow Creek. Unfortunately, the part of Arrow Creek that he found really interesting is in the floodplain. I don't know if everyone heard that because Jody was coughing, but the part that he liked was in the floodplain. So we cannot move forward with that location. I've reached back out to him because Jody and I came up with an alternative location that I think could be really interesting. There's, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Dresden Park. And let me get out ahead of the question. Yes, it is going to be under construction, but there is a portion of Dresden Park, which is the where the memorial statue is. That whole green space right there is not part of the construction and is kind of protected in a way. So we had the idea of showing him that area possibly tucked back over where the trail, where there's a little walking trail that comes up through there. So I wanted to show him that space. Since Arrow Creek does not seem like it's going to work out, he could come back and say, well, let's look at some of the other areas of Arrow Creek that I didn't like so much. So we'll see when he gets back to me on that. But our walkthrough was great. He was really fun to meet and really cool to talk to. So he's excited to work with us. Which one, Arrow Creek or Dresden? Well, it is up against the road. So you would see it, presumably. I mean, it might be tucked a little bit, but if you're coming into Dresden, you would see it.
It probably has better visibility
Than
than
Arrow
down
Creek.
in Arrow Creek, because
Yeah.
it's going to be visible from the road. I'm sorry, if I can say, if everyone can make sure they key into their mics when they're talking, if you don't end up being heard, to anyone who watches this later. But no, the Dresden location is just overall going to have a better visibility to the driving public, at least, as well as walking public.
Yeah.
Arrow Creek Park, I think would look great down there, but it's going to be a destination there. for
Yeah,
people
you
see
have to
it.
be visiting the park to see it. You wouldn't see it from anywhere else.
And can you remind me of the timeline that we had planned for the Massey sculpture and how that lines up with the construction timeline, I guess?
Yeah, so Massey's timeline that he's given us is a finalization in December, but he would start work in October. So it's kind of a slow process because he's bringing in, small pieces of metal and working on site. Which is also, I think, kind of cool because, the community can come and see it. And he and I talked a bit about that as well, because he likes to do a community outreach at the beginning of his process. And I asked him what he thought about inviting the community during the process. And he seemed interested, so we'll keep working on that.
Has he ever shown a mock-up of the plan?
We do not have a plan with him yet. We have not given him a deposit. We do have a contract, but we have not started a deposit yet.
Oh, okay. We want to get one, though, I'm sure, that before he starts.
A mock-up?
Yeah,
Yeah, so like I said, he does some community outreach in the beginning to see sort of what the community wants out of the project. So that would be part of the process.
so he's still developing the designs, is that correct?
We haven't started at all
Okay.
with him, yeah. We're at ground zero A beginning.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, maybe this will help clarify. So he has the community input session, and then from that, then he begins on his design and then presents the design to us.
And
So
we-
we're contracting with him based on the samples of his previous work, and we could see what a good job he does. And then from there, we would see his design and then can have input on the design, the actual piece that we'll get from the process. Does that help clarify?
It does. It's just that we've been talking about them for a while. I just wanted, at what design level it is. Have we given him any money to,
We have not started a deposit yet, no.
okay.
I don't think.
Is there is there a design fee that will?
Yeah, he has a whole schedule, and the mayor signed that contract at last week's meeting, I believe. So now that that's signed, we'll begin following that schedule.
I just had a thought for like a interesting, PR kind of asset is like a time lapse. Yeah, like a time lapse video.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I mean, I don't know where you would hide a camera, so but, or if someone could go literally just stand in the same place and take a snapshot every day, that would be interesting for some PR and
That's a fun
marketing
idea,
later.
yeah. I mean, and that may be something that he can provide as well.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I'm sure he's done it before.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
So
So
the
you can
next-
see, actually, I'm sorry, you can see on this slide, Tom, that it says, this is taken from his contract. It includes up to two design edits before approval, includes one community input session workshop. So those are baked into the way he works.
And so I see that the next steps are to do a second site visit to look at the Dresden Park proposed locations. And so once that site visit happens, how quickly can we move it along? I think we'd all love to see some progress.
Well, again, I don't have it up on this screen, but he has a schedule that backs up from that December finalization point back.
Okay.
So he actually has all those dates, and I believe, I want to say mid-June is when things really kick off. So once we pick the site, we should just start following his schedule and be off to the races. He is. All right, next is Color Field. This is an old one. This is from last year's budget. This is the sculpture that's going in front of Southbound. This is finally on its way to us. I did have to put it off a little bit. They wanted to have it arrive the week after next, which I'm actually out of town, and next week our parks maintenance person is out of town, so we had to push it to June. But it is going to be here after June 9th, sometime during that week, and it's being delivered via freight, and we are ready to go. So once it arrives, this, some of you may remember that this sculpture is coming to us as a kit, and we're going to have city staff pour the base and create the base for it. We also already have our capital projects team working on lighting for that area. So they're going to start doing the underground work fairly soon, if not already started on it. So we'll see people working out there. So that, yeah, and I don't know, really the pouring the base and all that depends on the timing of the pre-work for the lighting. So we'll see on that. And since it's city staff, we don't have to, be too crazy about scheduling because it's not an outside person. All right, and I'm going to hand it back over to you, Brittany. Oh, sorry.
Did we talk about the chalk walk and artist market?
Oh, did I put that on the thing? Yeah, I think I took that off because there's really no update for that. I do have on the calendar, I have a meeting, a walkthrough with the gentleman who does the the layout stuff for us. And that's really my only update, is that he and I, next month, are going to do a walkthrough and start moving on that.
And I need to send you the updated logo still.
Oh, that's right.
Chalk walk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, and that, because he uses that for like stickers and stuff.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, under old business, we've got the Public Art Commission logo discussion. You guys should all have a printed copy in front of you. If you remember from last month, Ina presented some initial designs to us. We had a little bit of discussion, and then she went back to the drawing board, so to speak, and made a few tweaks, and has now presented us with 9 different colorful options that you can see here. On the screen in front of you, I see that Tanisha has numbered them, so that might help us with our discussion and make sure that we're all looking at the same one. Excuse me.
I just noticed I have a typo on number 3. So I wanted to say that before somebody pointed it out, so.
In regard to this, we left out Chamblee as far as one of the letters, is that correct? And so just Public Arts Commission? And we will just rely on wherever the logo is, there's going to be printing below it, or is it going to stand alone as PAC?
I too was actually going to mention that, just because I feel like we talked about, Elmer, maybe you brought it up, that PAC was something else, and we're going to.
CPAC is the
was.
Conservative Public Action Committee.
Okay,
So we really don't want to have that as our
Okay.
logo.
I got my brain backwards, just
Yeah.
like Tom did that.
But,
Okay.
but I'd like to note that each one of these logos has Chamblee Public Arts Commission written next to it, below it, above it. So the logo includes that lettering that says those words.
Do we ever suggest Chamblee Public Arts as the 3 letters and leave off commission?
That hasn't been
We didn't have the discussion, but that may actually be a trademarked term for certified public accountants. I'm not
Yeah.
joking. That's
No,
that's the issue with
whenever
that
you
one.
get into something of this nature, you run that risk of, because there's all kinds of entities out there.
I can try something with Chamblee more. I was actually going to ask if everyone maybe thought that we need something with Chamblee being a little more prominent.
I was going to suggest maybe if we put Chamblee, like the words on top of the logo itself, like the first one especially, I think, because it's such a simple, flat design, you could put the lettering on top of it and it wouldn't disrupt it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not in black, but
Yeah, like on top of PAC. Yeah. I could do another round and try it out like that.
Would it be helpful if we maybe narrowed down some of these options so that your round 3 is a little less laborious?
Yes. And I'm more than happy to try out different styles or ideas if y'all. I try to do like a little railroad one, and it looked a little hokey, but I know Chamblee's known for our railroad system, I guess. Yeah. So if folks have some ideas, I can try to.
What if going with Kelsey's suggestion of the Chamblee on top, what if there was one that had the Chamblee sign from that apartment complex on top of it? I think that would be really cool. It's kind of like a staple.
it looks like the.
I think
it's like
that's
almost
what
like
number
a
5
neon or
is
like a
supposed to
old,
be
yeah,
like,
old
right?
fox. sign,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Is number 5 supposed to be like that?
Yeah,
Ina?
number 5 is supposed to be like a more simplified, but yeah, I can try that, like trying to do the actual like sign lettering for Chamblee, but then with CAP be a little more simplified.
I mean, you could, so if we wanted to play with that kind of do like a vintage theater style light font and maybe even put Public Art Commission underneath it. So Chamblee being that like almost similar to the sign font, and then Public Art Commission kind of being plain letters underneath.
Yeah, I'll try that out. I think that would be good.
So just to clarify, so you're envisioning the Chamblee, the entire word being like that sign, and then Public Arts Commission being like just a regular font? Okay. I'm just going to say that I feel like, because I know it's on top of that building, and I know it's also on a sign right when you come off 285, so I feel like it's not going to distinguish itself from Public Arts Commission if we use it for this logo. But maybe we can use that idea, but maybe it's not the whole word of Chamblee looking exactly like that sign. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
On that theme, what if you just had Chamblee written across in the middle, and the background were much larger letters of the PAC,
Yeah.
you know, where you can still make both out very distinctly, you know, but it's incorporating Chamblee with PAC. How's that sound?
Yeah, I can try the PAC in those marquee letters, and then, because that'll play on that sign, and people from Chamblee should recognize that, and then Chamblee will just, I'll try both versions. I'll try Chamblee in the marquee font, and then Public Arts Commission, more simplified, and then I'll try a version with PAC in the marquee font.
Can I ask, whenever we commission artists to do like the electrical boxes and things like that, does that become property of Chamblee? Like we have the rights to that at that point?
So, good question. There's something called a Vera contract, and what Vera does, or sorry, a Vera, it's sort of like a stipulation where what we're saying is you're kind of waiving your rights to Vera, and what that means is you're waiving the rights to ownership of your art since we own the building or what have you. I can't remember if we have people sign those for something as small as a utility box, but we try to when there's a big mural. I don't believe the city of Chamblee has ever run into any issues with that, but there are some famous cases where things have come back to bite cities in the butt. So that's a good question.
So we want to table this for next time?
Do we still want
Do you, yeah,
to, like, what do you
narrow
call-
some of these
narrow
down?
Yeah.
Is, like, I guess, Ina, tell us what you might need from us and and
Well,
help.
I'm gonna try the marquee. I think that would look really cool. I don't know, I guess we can try to narrow them down to like 2 or 3 or 4. And then next time, I guess we'll have to decide on the colors, because I was just kind of going, right, and, you know. So, maybe narrow them down.
Okay. I'm hearing that we need to narrow these down to our top 3. That's what I'm hearing. How about anybody else? All right. So how should we, what's the best way we want to go about that?
But I guess the marquee is going to look completely different to any of these, so if everybody likes the idea of the marquee, I could just work on that, or,
Well, maybe for these, like, we can narrow them down, and you can try putting, like, Chamblee on top, like me and Tom were talking about.
Okay.
And then play with different colors and stuff
Okay.
like that. Just, like, overall design, I think, like.
And an ignorant question, are the colors supposed to be more light or dark as the paper that's in front of us?
it might be just the screen has its,
So your vision, though, was a little bit more dark?
it's just whatever you see on that. Like,
Okay.
on this screen, it's a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Those are the true colors up there.
Got it.
Okay, so the only thing I can think of is if we do like we did with the colors for the columns and just go down the list and vote one by one. All right, you guys ready?
Brittany, do you want to clarify, people can vote for as
More
many
than
as they
one.
want?
Yes, more, as many as you want, and then we'll take the ones that have the most votes. How about that? Everybody clear on what we're doing? Okay, we're going to kind of do this as quickly as we can. All right, logo number 1, you see they're numbered on your screen, so you know which one I'm talking about. Logo number 1, raise your hand if you'd like to include that one in the list. 1, 2, 3, 4 votes for number 1. All right, logo number 2, raise your hand if you'd like to include that one. No votes for number 2. Logo number 3, raise your hand if you'd like that one to be included. We've got 5 votes for number 3. Without the typo, please. All right, logo number 4, raise your hand if you'd like that one to be included. We've got 1 vote for number 4. Okay, and
I just like the NPR throwback.
yes, it's very NPR. Love it. All right, logo number 5. Raise your hand if you'd like that one to be included. We've got 2 votes for number 5. All right, logo number 6. Raise your hand if you would like that one to be included. Oh, I've got 0 votes for number 6. All right, raise your hand for logo number 7 if you would like that one to be included. We've got 4 votes for number 7. Okay. Logo number 8, if you'd like that one to be included. 1, 2, 3 votes for number 8. All right, and then last one, logo number 9, if you would like that one to be included, raise your hand. 2 votes for number 9. Oh, I'm sorry, 3 votes. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so we've got 4 for number 1, 5 for number 3, 4 for number 7. So that's the top 3 is number 1, number 3, and number 7. And then for 4th place is tied numbers 8 and 9. So if we want to just go with the top 3.
Okay, and then the marquee one.
And then the correct.
Okay.
You got that? So number 1, number 3, and number 7.
I don't know if we want to, do we want to vote next meeting, or if I have that, like, next week, we just all vote on teams, or do we have to vote?
Oh, you're like, I don't, I mean, for something like this, I don't see a need for it to be at a meeting. This can be consensus. I would say as we're working through this, keep in mind that this has to be a multi-purpose logo. So not just printing stickers and stuff, but also screen printing T-shirts. So color mixing becomes challenging, and the more colors, the more expensive it gets.
And you should probably keep in mind if we need a 1-color version for something.
Yeah, or a black and white version as
Yeah.
well.
5 would be tough because or number 3 would be tough because they overlap the letters.
So that's a 5-color print right there.
So, well, and then, yeah, if it overlaps, it's
Yep.
And getting the lineup on that would be, the T-shirt guys would probably hate you.
should we just scrap, should we scrap?
Well, I think you'd have to have a simplified version to screen print it. I think you'd have to get rid of the color overlaps
Okay.
if you were going to do it as a screen print. So just, sorry, there's the mechanical side of it.
Yeah, if
going
it's,
out.
so maybe that's the challenge, that's the design challenge for you, is like if number 3 gets screen printed and we need to simplify it, and if there's a 1-color need for it, what does that look like?
Number 7 also.
Yeah, there's a lot of color in number 7. Mm-hmm.
For 3, you could even like stack it the way you have 8 stacked or something similar to that.
Thank you so much for doing this work. It's great. Okay, next up on the agenda, we've got new business. The first item being the adoption of Microsoft Teams. You guys remember from last month's discussion, we all had various email issues. Leave it to the artistic folks, I guess, to not be able to navigate technology. I'm ashamed for us. But Tanisha hooked us up with a Teams group, so now we all should have access to that. You should have all seen some notes and stuff. I was testing it out last week, just tagging folks, making sure everybody sees that and gets it. It is a free app you can download for your phones, and of course, you can access it from your laptop as well. So feel free to do that. If you need some assistance figuring out how to navigate Teams, if you don't use it in your professional life, please reach out to Tanisha, who uses this for everything with the city. I use it in my professional, my day job as well, so feel free to reach out to either of us if you need some help navigating those two things. But we also want to make sure everyone is seeing those messages. So if you haven't already, I think the only person that we're not sure has seen a message is Tom. So I guess just check with us at the end of the meeting if you need some help figuring that out.
Well, yeah, I was trying to respond to all of that, and was going through Instagram, FaceTime, and this and that. Because every time I would do it, it would throw me off. So I'm going to need help.
Gotcha. We can help you out. All right, next up on the agenda is the initial discussion for our 2025 projects. I know it feels maybe kind of early, but it is middle of the year, and the rest of the year will go by in the blink of an eye. So I want us to at least be prepared to have to do this. So and maybe Tanisha or Jody, if you guys can remind us of the timeline of when we, and Elmer as well, when we need to put these in front of the city council for approval for next year, because it has to be before the December meeting, right?
Yeah, I believe we really start talking about it in October.
Yeah,
October.
the first round budget is due from staff to city manager's office by the beginning of October, basically.
Okay.
We're locking in, we generally lock in the budget right after, middle of November, after elections. Is we're doing that, because then we adopt in December.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that before you said we adopt in December? What'd you say?
So, beginning of October is first pass on budget review. Middle of November is second pass, hard decisions to finalize, because then we have to hold public hearings on it, and then we have to adopt it in December. So yeah, really, end of September is when this group needs to have a list put together.
Great, thank you for explaining that.
And so I put on this slide here, if you haven't seen this list, which I screenshotted, you can find it on Teams, the link to it on Teams and SharePoint, and in the email that Brittany sent. It's is it a Google Doc?
I started it as a Google Sheet. I can migrate it into SharePoint so that it just lives there and we don't have to worry about it redirecting you to Google.
With that said, let me ask, how many of you have accessed our SharePoint? Do you guys ever look at it?
I
No?
do, but
Okay.
I'm a nerd.
Okay, so maybe let's send that out again, and if you guys could all try to access it and make sure that you can get on there, because that's where a lot of files live and where a lot of historical files live. So if you needed information on something we talked about a year ago, 2 years ago, it's going to be in there. So that's a really good sort of resource. It's not as easy to use as some other things, but you get the hang of it once you're in there for a while.
Yeah, if you have any experience using Microsoft or Office or anything, it's all that. It's a SharePoint, it's just a file storing system,
Yeah.
so it's not complicated. And then the files in there are all like Word docs and Excel sheets and that PDFs and that type of thing. So if you're able to open or use those, you're good to go. So I can migrate this from Google. I just default there for other things that I do outside of my professional life. But I can migrate it into an Excel sheet and put it in SharePoint.
So my thought was, I know we wanted to put this on the agenda. My thought was, since not everybody has put ideas on the sheet, maybe some people haven't read through the sheet, that this is a big reminder to let's do that. And maybe next month's meeting, we devote time to go through those ideas and have an open discussion about it. And that way, so that'll be June, that way by July, we're maybe really starting to narrow down what we want to put more effort into and start researching and coming up with images and all that kind of stuff. Does that work for everybody? And then I just wanted to show you, I was just kind of getting data heavy here, but I wanted to show you the project ideas list so far. I broke out to show kind of what the ideas are leaning towards. So we have a lot of mural ideas on there, asphalt murals, which we've always wanted to kind of do. There's great grants out there for asphalt murals. It is difficult to get done because of road closures, DOT, all that kind of stuff. Programming and development, I threw both of the Arts Center ideas under that umbrella, as well as a few other smaller ideas. Interactive, pop-up placemaking, those were a lot of what you were talking about, Brittany, and then sculptures. So we have some really good ideas on there, a good variety to look at and choose from. Unfortunately, I think you guys are all aware that we don't know how much we're going to get for next year's budget before we come up with our proposal list. So there's always a chance, like this year, where we'll have to look back at our list early next year and say, okay, what are we going to cut or what are we going to change? But this is our wish list.
I feel like if anybody works with budgets, that should not be an unusual situation. You present your budget, and then they say, you can have 75% of that, and then you regroup.
All right,
Okay.
so I'll plan next month's meeting to be mostly a discussion about the 2025 project list.
That sounds good. And then I know before the meeting started that Tom presented us with a document here with some information, so I wanted to turn it over to Tom if you would like to address this at this point in the agenda, or if you want to table it for another time.
I'm sorry, Tom, before you start, we don't have
Hang on.
them.
Give everybody
okay. Here, I'll
a
pass
copy,
down.
so let me do that. I did print up
And if you can just give the background on what's in your document, I think it's basically just like he's going to talk through that.
How many
So
do
if
I
you
need
guys
down
want to
there?
share it.
3 or 4 or something?
Oh, there we go. Coming, you're coming, you're coming.
Yeah, so I at least have a printer now.
Thank you.
Do I have enough for everybody?
You're good. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So it was just something that I would like to start discussing amongst ourselves, the potential of having, a brick and mortar art center. And I think it speaks well for a community as far as its interests and its merits. So, to have a brick and mortar place where you can go and you can have exhibits there that can bring in, from other, shared museums per se that you exchange, or you have your own collection, but there should be some sort of a exhibit space for a art center, for the Chamblee Art Center. Someplace also, it could be, initially for lectures, you could have multi-purpose uses of certain spaces as well, for discussions, interactions of different motivations, different things that we can accomplish, not unlike what we're doing here, but more open to the community. And, just letting more creativity just come through the city. Educational areas for workshops. I think you're probably limited by how much space you have, but an interactive space for art for children, I've seen it at High Museum, and it's fantastic. They just have a lot of different creative things that kids, even, 2-year-olds, they don't know why they're picking it up, but they have a great time doing it. I think that would be well worth considering. And then a central area for arts festivals, not unlike what we do in the parking lot out here with Chalk Days and whatnot. You have a festival around and in an art center can be, very, very rewarding. Locations, I mean, it's occurred to me that the old city hall would be, obviously, it would be a good location because of not only its location being central, but also it's a fairly large building. It would have to undergo, quite a bit of remodeling for that. Or if that's not available, we can look at other sites from just a new structure being built. And I've talked with some people about that sort of thing too. And there is property that is being looked at for the city's use. Funding. To be realistic, I doubt if the city council will approve many millions of dollars. Some of this would be an undertaking of large scale. And Tanisha made mention of it, that it might be an avenue for a nonprofit to be part of the development of that, but also have to work in conjunction with, say, the Public Arts Commission, where you can amass funds for this project alone. So these were just some thoughts, and I wanted to throw it out there, literally just throw it out there to see if there's any interest, if there is that we can, that it spurs something from y'all as far as what more we can do with this brick and mortar concept. I know that it's been proposed before unsuccessfully, and I have to think that funding would be a major part of its success. So that probably has to, things that in order to at least initially get started, you would need to have some sort of a sign-off from the city hall, from the city council, that would either involve new construction or the existing building that they would support, and then some sort of organization that we take steps to actually set up a nonprofit foundation. So those are just some thoughts that I thought, these things take long time. So, but you have to start someplace, again. Okay. Any
So
thoughts?
I think it is an idea that we all agree with in some capacity. And like you had acknowledged, it has been discussed before with the commission. I honestly don't know what to say. I would actually ask to defer to Elmer for him to share his thoughts as our representative from the city council, because obviously whatever we might propose as an advisory board has to be palatable to the council.
Making me the wet blanket again, huh? Okay. It's funding, plain and simple. It's funding. The city's budget is about $31 million a year, not including specialty funds that are allocated to specific roles. And this year, we went into budget season. This year, the roughed down version before it came to council was $37 million. We had to cut $6 million out in 6 weeks. And a lot of projects got put aside. If this is going to happen, it has to start from a not-for-profit arts organization that's created for Chamblee. At that point, the city can look at grants to an organization like that, but we simply don't have the capacity. We don't have the debt capacity.
No, and very few communities do.
Well, and for us, for a city of our size, with what we have coming up the next few years for projects, we have massive amounts of stormwater work to do, massive amounts of road and sidewalk work coming up, before we even get to the things we'd like to do
Yes.
Right now, we have a Trails Master Plan that we approved last year that I would love to see move forward. And the night we approved it, we were told it's a 20-year and $75 million project at that moment. And with construction increases over that 20 years, it'll probably be over $100 million. That doesn't even start us on the parks that we have to rebuild just to keep them functional. I mean, Jody's requests every year are, hi, I need new lights for my softball field, please, pretty please, we can't turn them on anymore. And that's one of the cheaper asks. It's a great idea. I think it can be a tremendous, I think an arts center can be a tremendous force for a community. They also have an amazing ability to become an albatross. Having toured around other cities in the area and talked to them about their art centers and performance centers, the general thing we've been told by their economic development people is do whatever you can to not have it on the city's bill. And that's from cities that own them. Duluth has a great little concert venue. It works because they got the guy from Eddie's Attic to run it. And they have flat out said, if he retires, they don't know what the next step is to keep it going. And
Yeah.
he's the third or fourth person in there running it because all the previous ones and other versions didn't work. There's a beautiful performing arts center up in, I think we're in Lawrenceville. It's gorgeous. I know people that worked on it. And when we talked with them, it's a constant struggle of how to make this thing work. City Springs is in the same boat. Every one of them is in the same place. They're wonderful ideas. We all love the arts. We all want to support it. And it's the first thing that people stop donating to in most cases. And they're really, really expensive. Remember, my day job is building those kind of buildings. I write estimates for projects, and my section's the one that gets value engineered. You know, oh, we want a full theater with moving battens and automation and everything else, but half the time it's done, everything is dead hung pipes, and you're working from ladders and lifts to hang fixtures and drapes. Yes, love to see it. What's the thing that's the scale that makes sense to start with, and what's the group that does the fundraising to make it happen? Doraville has done a great little job with their project, and it's a house. It's 1,500 square feet. And I've been in these meetings since 3 days after I was elected. We had budget review right after I was elected in 21, and we talked about white boxing that building just to have it ready to be something. And I think the estimate at that point, just to white box, take everything out, clean it, strip it down, was $400,000.
Yeah.
And that's no infrastructure, just strip it to the walls and get it ready.
Yep.
How do we finance it? That's
about-
always the question.
What about that little house that used to be the Giving Tree thrift store?
Which one? The little...
The really cute, it's like a little historic house right here.
Oh, across the
on-
street? That's owned by a private real
Yeah, that's
estate
private.
investment group. They have absolutely no interest in selling that. They own everything from the Norfolk Southern parking lot all the way down, and if they have a plan for it, they're not sharing it with any of us. But that's all owned by one investment group. That's our challenge.
Yeah.
That's our challenge every day.
I would say something that I have seen in the past and continues to be a bit of a trend is using empty spaces and doing placemaking in existing spaces that we already have. Basically what we're talking about with this space here, but to a lesser degree that is achievable with the funds that we know we have available to us or will have available to us on an annual basis. An example of that is to an actionable scale is the summer camp that Jody and Tanisha's team have orchestrated that is happening in the smaller vacant building that's right out front, where they're bringing in an outside group who don't have their own space. They're looking at this empty space that other people might turn their nose up at, and they see the value, they see the potential, and they can use that space. And I think that we can use that summer camp that's happening this coming up real soon, next month, I think, and that is proof of concept. You know, how can we take the success that will be and recreate that in the spaces that we know that we already have, and look at what funding sources are available to us, knowing what the challenges that this team has discussed before about how we can't carry over funds from year to year unless we had that external nonprofit organization to do that on our behalf. So what can we do annually that allows us to use up all of those funds? And so we can look at, which leads me to the next item on our agenda when we get to that after this discussion, is what are those grants that are out there that are available to us that we can apply for? It may be 2025 when we get those. It may be longer lead time, 2026, and looking at those. Some, and some of that is large dollars, especially NEA. What's the creative placemaking one? Public places, something for public places. Those are two very large ones that we know of and that they're already familiar with. So I think that might be the first, is like the step to eventually get to something like this, Tom, is like, how do we make it scalable to where we can actually achieve it and kind of baby step it from what we would all love, pie in the sky, to what we can actually achieve on an annual basis in the reality that we're living in right now.
Well, I agree with you, and I agree with Elmer as in terms of how, the funding is well out of budget of what Chamblee City Council can deal with. So the funding has to come from a different place. Now, what I would think that one of the initial steps is to say if the funding comes from a different means, would this building be granted or not? And then there's going to be a ton of stipulations. This has to happen before that and so forth, before you can actually move forward. But you can't move forward without the city council saying, we're on board with it. We think that it's valuable to the community, but it's such the size of Chamblee is such that we're not able to fund it probably at all, because I think that what the budget that we have now is pretty much what we're spending and doing a very nice job as far as being the community starting to see it. So this is in a whole different ballpark.
Right. I'd also like to say, this organization has been in existence for 4 years, right? You guys, 4 years? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there's a 10-year master arts plan that is basically our guiding, our guiding principles. There is an art center as part of that plan, but there are other action items in there, and we have been basically addressing those from, the ones that we can achieve, in steps, progressively.
Yeah.
But I do also know that the city council has had discussions publicly at meetings about where we're going in the future regarding arts and the arts plan, and I know that is something that, if not all, some of them want to discuss in their annual retreat about how that might change. So just like with the Parks Master Plan and how they redid that, I don't know if that is on the table for the Arts Master Plan in the next year or the next 2 years. So, Elmer.
We are going to be discussing when to go about reviewing the Arts Master Plan. That's part of our discussion and planning at our retreat in July. One thing I'll point out in the Arts Master Plan, it's a little confusing. The Arts Center is referenced in there, but not necessarily under the Public Arts Commission. Public Arts Commission exists as a advisory group to the council for public art. The idea of an art center is proposed in there, and that's kind of a beast in and of itself. Not to say that the Public Arts Commission wouldn't be involved with that, but it is envisioned as its own silo. And I mean, the city council has said, look, these are great ideas. We need to see how it's getting funded. So it becomes this chicken and egg argument. And if a group is really serious about moving it forward, then that group really needs to become the one that puts forth the creation of a nonprofit to be the driving force. It's,
absolutely correct.
it's, if you want the council to get behind it, that's who needs to show up in front of them.
Yeah.
And while I don't think it should be done completely independent of the city, created, it is something that is going to exist not necessarily directly under the city.
I agree with all that, yeah.
I'm just gonna throw this out there, but my friend owned a winery and he would host monthly art galleries. And so an artist would submit their work, he would hang it in his winery for the full month, and people would buy it throughout the month, and then at the end of the month, there would be like a gallery viewing party kind of thing. And this cost nothing for him to do, and he never took any payment from the artist, but if we were deciding to use a space that we already had, we could have something similar. And if we were concerned about funding, we could, take a percentage of sales. Like I was just part of I can't even remember what it's called, the Southeast Festival, and they took 20% off of my sale, so small scale, things we already have, people for free, things like that in there. And then, of course, the artist gets their revenue, we see what kind of generation is happening, and, things from there.
I agree. We have also had conversations in the past about the lobby space here at City Hall and using these lovely blank walls as gallery space. So I think that's an idea that if it's not in the 2025 project, we should probably get that in there. And, because it has been discussed in the past, I know. And we can revisit that for 2025. And then, like we were saying, like what other empty spaces, Old City Hall, the small buildings across the street, we can look and see what kind of activations that we can do in those spaces with the budgeting that we have available without necessarily having to do the $400,000 white box treatment. There could be a lot more cost-effective ways to activate those spaces. And I say that because I have done that for a dozen years through the Atlanta Fringe Festival that I co-founded and help run every year. We have theater performances happen in old mansions and in old school gyms, and I've seen performances in New Orleans. I saw one that was in a warehouse. I was just sitting next to a giant stack of boxes of Mardi Gras beads. I mean, theater can happen anywhere, and so I think that we've got potential. It may not be to the beautiful, polished, giant scale that we would love for it to be, but we've got things that we can do to, like I said, baby step our way up to maybe one day having that big, beautiful, polished building of our own.
Could we also work with local businesses to kind of allow them to display other people's art, in their establishments?
So the festival, I just remembered, the festival I was talking about is called Art Fields, and that is exactly what they do. So they have everybody, and of course businesses have to be willing, but I think they have 25 that are agreeable, and they're all within just a few blocks of each other. And so these businesses are the ones that host the artwork for the time being. And I think I had mine submitted for a month, 2 months, something like that. So that's obviously a much shorter term, and I think small businesses too, they have an aesthetic that they want to appeal to their customers. So it might not be a 12 months out of the year kind of project, but something.
Yeah, I think put all these ideas on the plan, and then we can talk about them next month. So it sounds like we're ready to move on to our last agenda item, the creation of a grants committee. So I mentioned earlier grants like NEA and the public spaces, and also anticipating that we would probably be flat to this year funding-wise next year. If we think about that, and if we want to be able to do more than what we're doing this year, grants are the way to go about doing that. So I propose that we start a committee. It doesn't have to be everyone. You do not have to be involved. If the idea of researching grants and helping with writing grants scares the crap out of you, but if you have any experience researching and or writing. It doesn't have to be just with grants. I will commit myself to being on this committee, but at least a couple other folks who can commit some time would be helpful, because I think that is the only way to kind of drive some of these larger ideas is to get that grant funding. And so we got to put in the work.
I want to do
Jen, all right.
I don't have any experience.
Can you read? Can
I
you
can
write?
read and I can write,
I'll
but
take
I
it.
really want to gain more experience with grants. So I think this is how I could do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is anyone else at all interested?
I'm bowing out of anything for a while, but I will, I have some people that I know that might have some knowledge on some stuff, so I might reach out to them and see if I can at least bare minimum get you some info. But
I will take third-party tips and tricks and secret knowledge and info, all of it.
I'd be interested too, but
Okay.
Shannon, I don't really have much experience, but
If you are willing to learn.
I'm willing to learn.
And you can do a Google search and read some documents, because I promise you, the grant part is like, it's a lot of reading and trying to interpret and understand. So if you're committed to reading some not very exciting documents, you'll do great. Okay, that's a great place to start right there with Shan and Ina and myself, and then any help that we get from Polina's connections. And then so I'll reach out to y'all individually and we can communicate and get started.
And I think just starting a discussion in the teams where we can start throwing files, and I'll give you guys any links that I have, I have some resources from last year that we can grab links from and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, my initial thought is the first place we're going to start is just put a spreadsheet together, kind of like the ideas spreadsheet, where it's just, this is the opportunity, when it's due, when it opens, what they accept, various things like that. So that's going to be the first step. Okay. Next up on the agenda is public comment. Jody, do you have something you'd like to say? There's a guy with a dog. Come in here. You got something to say about the arts? Okay, so with no public comment. Then our next meeting will be June 27th at 6 p.m. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Paulina. A second? All right, Tom. And so we are now adjourned.
That sort of
Oh, yeah.
relationship.
Yeah, let me take a picture. I like that.
And because if these are bold enough, it just becomes a backdrop.